Shalom, when the self source begin no praise the hour, but Shem El Shah Bashim Kakadash, the one is supposed to great most on honesty boast in the work, the most on truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name of whom the world name calls God Jehovah. Yahweh's real name is Yahweh, son's true name is Yahweh Shai. Pray Yahweh Ba Shem, Yahweh Shai Bermin in Bermin Dan Sham, meaning names, Yahweh, the name of Yahweh Shai. Real quick, looking into the situation happening in the Niger right now, right? As always, man, the Lord is working, right? We're seeing what the hell is we're seeing what's what's going on around in this world, right? And then it's basically showing us one thing, right? That these are we're coming up to the times of the end, right? So the main focus at the moment over there is Niger, right? However, right, you're having these other nations that are basically coming and saying, yo, hey, we're down with what Niger is doing, okay? Because what basically Niger has done is they've kicked out them French Edomites from their land, right? Or rather, they're trying to kick out them French Edomites from their land, right? France basically takes a lot of uranium out of Niger, right? And it's a bit windy, so Lord's will you can hear me. But France takes a lot of uranium out of Niger, which basically powers a lot of France's infrastructure, right? Which got electrical infrastructure and stuff like that. So one of the things in terms of hypocrisy, people are like, wait there though, how comes y'all have electricity based on, coming from us? However, right, our people have no electricity, right? And then not only that, Niger has a lot of gold. And once again, they're like, wait there, how comes you man have gold and we don't have any gold, right? So these nations are starting to get pissed, right? And then they've got allies in Russia and China that are willing, right, to be there for them, right? To be a guard unto them, which is a precept I'm going to get in a second, right? Which once again, that was another precept that I got in literally the previous lesson, but that time it was in regards to Libya, right? So we're basically seeing allies being made right now, right? We're seeing allies being made because the Lord, right, has a controversy with this world, and he's going to start, he's stirring things up, okay? Right, and this is that example there that I showed you, right? The new Niger authorities have suspended the export of uranium and gold to France, quoting TASS. That was on the 31st of July, right? But let's just get straight into it. And like I said, it's a bit windy, so Lord's will you can hear me okay, right? All right, starting off here, right? So this is Ezekiel 38. Right, as promises in the word of the Lord, Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against them. Right, and this is referring to Russia today, okay? Right, and against them because the Lord ultimately is just using these Russians, right? They're still Edomites, right? It goes on saying, thus saith the Lord, power behold, I'm against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I'll turn thee back, right, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I'll bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, right? So basically, Lord's going in there and saying, look, man, I'm gonna put you back into that Cold War mentality, that Cold War spirit, okay? Which is why, once again, we're seeing these alliances being made. We're seeing, we're seeing these smaller nations thinking that they're feeling strong, right? Because they know they've got that Russian army behind them, right? It ain't like basically they're thinking, look, man, you ain't gonna Gaddafi us, right? We've been smart this time, right? We've got military assurances, right, before we kick you devils out the country. So it goes on to say Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, right? All of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his band, and many people with thee, right? It says, and be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and this is the point, and be thou a God unto them, right? And that's what these nations are looking at Russia for, right? They're looking at Russia to be a God unto them, because these damn what do you call these damn Western devils have just been plundering, right, the land, right? Has just been plundering their land with no what do you call it, with no, and they don't see the benefit of it. So what these Russians are, seem to be offering, but because at the end of the day, they're still Edomites. What does the scripture say? Sirach 12 and 10, never trust thine enemy, right? But what these Russians, right, and these Chinese appear to be proposing is a better deal, okay? But that's why, for instance, once again, the what did the scripture say of these Edomites, man? It says, how's the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder, right? Basically going into the fact that these devils, these American devils, man, they just go around as a hammer of the earth, right? And that's another thing I've been seeing online. People are like, oh, they own, and they're hypocrites, right? So we'll just talk about the hypocrite, right? And BL was saying in articles online, people are saying they're not supporting this coup because it's not a coup that they've set up, right? Because once again, these devils be just going around in other people's countries destabilizing things. In fact, we'll just go and get that real quick. It says Habakkuk 2 and 5 says, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desires hell and desires death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people, right? And that's it. So he neither keepeth at home, right? He never keeps at home. He's always here, there, and everywhere, right? Or, when you look at these French devils, like, why the hell, are they having to be kicked out of Niger, right? Because, what do you call it? France has a lot of colonies, right? And then not only that, goes and say, and enlargeth his desires. Oh yeah, how is it that the French have loads, right? But the people of Niger don't have anything yet. The people of the country, the land where Niger is, right, has natural resources, right? But that's this devil for you, man, right? He takes, and the inhabitants of the land from where he takes get put into oppression, okay? That's why another precept says, how hath the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased, right? This man is, all about oppression, man, going to other people's countries and oppressing them. Even as I'm walking, I've seen two Elamites walking in the other direction. And what is the history of their land, right? What is the history of their land of the British, right? Elam being the so-called Indians, right? What was the history of the British with their land? The British went over there, declared themselves as the leaders of that land, and then when they left, right, they were butthurt. So what they do, they partition the land, and estimates say like 2+ million, or like one to two, I forget exactly, but over a million people died, right, in the partition of India, right? That is this man's heritage. That is this man's history, right? He did that, okay? Isaiah 14 and 9 says, hell from beneath is moved to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee. Right? The dead are these lower level nations that are raising up. Right? The Lord is putting in their spirits to raise up. But once again, right, the Lord is putting this all together, right? Because were it not for Russia coming and saying, look, man, we got you, you think these nations would be so brave as to kick out the American empire, right? Right, to kick out allies of America, right? To kick out the beast from their nations? Hell no. Why? Because they know the consequences. Once again, that's, personally speaking as a man, that's one of the reasons why I believe they made the execution of Gaddafi so public, right? The execution of Saddam so public. So as to be like, look, man, you don't play ball, this is what happens to you, man. Man, they said they raped a Gaddafi with a stick, man, before they executed that guy, right? What message were they sending? They were sending play ball or this or else, right? Just straight up war crimes. And that's what I mentioned about the hypocrite, because anyone else does it. If Russia performed, intervention like that, right? And then, the nation basically that happened to another leader, but they'd be uproar, like you're seeing with the Ukraine situation, right? But that's the hypocrite. So let me read that again. It says, hell from beneath is moved to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee. Even all the chief ones of the earth, it has raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. Right? So once again, these lower level nations are raising up. Niger, Algeria, Mali, right? These are examples of that. Libya, like I said the other day, right? And also what else? Right? Russia has just basically gone and said, look man, we gon' forgive your debts. We gon' forgive $23 billion worth of debt, man. Right? And then you got China coming in there as well, right, doing their thing, being like, look man, we're gonna build infrastructure for you, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. So these nations, they're like, fuck America, fuck the West. Okay? That's what they're saying. So Matthew 24:6 says, and you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Right, so we're seeing this and we're getting excited. We're like, yo, shit. Is this what's going on in the world right now? We're excited when we see these developments, right? Because it means that, we are closer, right, to where we need to be. Right? We're closer to where we need to be, right? But when you look at what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, we're basically close, to where we need to be, right? But we understand prophecy must needs be fulfilled, right? We must see the MOTB being pushed out, right? We must see, the time of Jacob's trouble, right? So prophecy must needs be fulfilled, right, before this third world war, right, really comes to pass. But right now, all lies on that part of the world, right, to see what comes of this, man, right? Because once again, what we're observing at the moment is a Game of Thrones, right? Russia is in a position now where they've got to be a guard unto these nations. These other nations, they're seeing what's going to happen. They're seeing whether Russia's going to have full protection basically over these other nations, right? And Russia knows it. Right, and then there's going to be judgments made. They're going to make decisions. They're going to be like, okay, cool. So siding with Russia gives you protections. So if that happens, let's not be surprised if we see more and more nations joining the bandwagon against these devils, man, these Edomite devils. Right, and then the last one. This is 2 Ezra 9:1. Right, it says he answered him and then he answered me then and said, measure thou the time diligently in itself, when thou seest part of the signs past, which I've told thee before. And what's the measuring stick? Right? These prophecies, right, that we're seeing unfolding before our eyes. And because we're seeing these prophecies unfold, what conclusion can we draw? That the end is nigh, right? And we're here for it. We're here for the end of this man's kingdom, right? Because in this man's kingdom is nothing but wickedness. But what do we yearn for? We yearn for a kingdom, right, wherein dwelleth righteousness, right, which is nigh at the door, right? It's just round the corner. Okay, so just a quick one, right? Eyes on that region of the world. See what happens, right? See if there are black ops operation that happen, because that's another thing, man. Speaking to certain people, right, that know that world, that covert world, there's a lot of stuff that happens that we don't even know about, right? That never gets reported. Why? Because at the end of the day, the media system work for who? They work for these elites, right? So these elites only let certain bits of information ever make the daylight, man. Right? Just look at the Hebrew Israelites, for example. Here it is, right? The Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahshua has made it such that it is a major movement. But guess what? You never hear you don't hear about Akim on the news, despite there being hundreds, thousands of camps, right, across the world, right? Not only in Great Millstone, but in general. But Esau don't like putting it on the news, right? Because it ain't profitable for his endeavor, right? But that doesn't mean it ain't happening, right? And it's the same thing with these black ops operations that this man be doing, these covert things, right? The murdering of people, right, in secret, right? These things are all happening. They just never get reported. Okay, so I said just a quick one. As always, Lord's what I was edifying, and yeah, man, let's pray, that more and more of these things continue to happen. So as always, shalom.